Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Artisan School, where we inspire Pianocraft. That's what we do. We teach piano technology. We teach you how to kind of live the craft that is working on pianos. And my name is David. I'm here. I'm one of the instructors, along with Stacy, who's one of the instructors. And we do this all week long. We do this 3 times a week, where we pick a subject, we pick a topic, and we just kind of flush it out as a group and pull from everybody's experience, which is really a lot of fun because, unfortunately, the career or the field that is piano technology is somewhat of a isolated. It is somewhat of a multiple islands, if you will. And when there's avenues where we can come together and just collaborate, that's just so much fun. And this is one of those avenues where we can collaborate. And today we are really collaborating over the concept of key easing. Now, there are, if you've spent any time in this field, you're going to find out that there are multiple ways to do all of this. And there's and there can be heated debates on how to do certain jobs. And so what we do here at the school is there's no ego here. So if people find another way of doing something, if people have thoughts on why one way of doing something is maybe not as good, we like to hear it, but we're working this together. This isn't a hierarchy. This is just a community. And so what I'm going to be showing you today is some of the things that I've learned over the last 24, I think next year is going to be 25 years. And I learned a lot from a lot of great techs. And this is just me spewing it out on you and then receiving it and then hearing what your guys' thoughts are. So we're going to do that right now. And this is key easing. I have right here just this simple action model. This is a grand action model, and it works great because I can simply kind of disassemble it on the spot. Stacy, can you still hear me okay? Sweet. So whether you're at an upright or a grand action model, you're going to need to take the action off. And so whether that's, again, a upright or a grand, it's best to go ahead and remove that stack so that you have access to the keys themselves. Now, there are a myriad of different things out there on the market for you to use to ease keys. I'm just going to go over a couple of them and just kind of give you my thoughts on them. The first one, this one isn't really that controversial, but the first one is just this balance rail hole easer. And there's different tools out there, but they basically have the same function where you have this tool that's supposed to go and be inserted through the top end, and then it eases this balance rail hole. This is one of those tools that is really good to have because while you can just jam a tool in the bottom of it and then elongate or widen that hole, this tool is really great. And again, they sell this kind of everywhere where piano tools get sold because it isn't just a circle. You know, yes, the top of it, the very tip is circular, but then as you go, it widens and it becomes elongated like an oval. And that's important, and we're going to talk about that in just a bit. But having some kind of a balance rail hole easing tool is really good. I like this tool because it just comes apart and can go in my kit, and I can lose it for a couple of weeks, and then I remember I have it because it's down in there. But a nice combo handle tool, one like this, is kind of nice to have. Now, there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of different like bushing easing pliers. And I do have thoughts on them, but at the end of the day, they're all going to do the same function. The only difference is some of them are safer than others. I'll just say that. It feels like some of them are safer. So when you have, and maybe Michael, you might have them on hand, when you have just the simple ones where they're just kind of go in, and you crimp them, those I would say are the most likely to maybe over ease. Michael, do you have those on hand? Just the simple ones?
I don't actually. They're in my secondary bag that I don't have with me right now. So I have actually the pair that you have in your hand there.
Yeah, I actually like this pair better. So this is most of them will have just a single function. You know, that it's just kind of this middle piece is not there. You just crimp the wood and the bushing, and you press it, and then that widens the hole so that then that key can slide easier. I like this tool because it seems to offer a little bit more of a safety net for when you're easing. It also, same with this next one, is nice because it allows you to just simply lift the key. It allows you to lift the key up and go and, whoa, you can't even see that. Lift the key up and ease, as opposed to fully taking it out and then easing it. So that's a nice feature. These ones do that same thing, but I don't like them as much. I feel like they're more cumbersome. I feel like they're also crazy expensive. I mean, to be fair, I'm not a metal worker or a machinist, but I can imagine this being a difficult tool to make. So I think that these are somewhat expensive, but it's just another key easing tool. It allows you to lift up the key and then ease them that way, which is kind of a nice feature. But those are really kind of the basics of the tools that you're going to use in key easing. And I'm curious with the group here, what of these tools do you have and what do you use most frequently?
I would recommend the first tool you had, the combination one. They make one that's double-ended. It's got the pointed end on one side, and on the other end, it kind of looks like a flat taper deal. I recommend that one. Well, one, because it's a little bit bigger, so it's not that easy to get lost. Usually, it's like a fat wooden little handle. Yeah. So, but the other end you can use instead of keys and pliers, you can use that side. But you do have to be a little more careful with that. I would say definitely on sharp keys, especially spinets, because there's not that much wood on the sides. No. And so that you're kind of just pushing it in. Yeah, just for anybody who does not use it, you push it in, and it kind of pushing against both sides at the same time. But obviously, if that wood's fragile, you can crack the wood. Versus pliers, you're having support on the outside, so that won't happen.
Yep,
that's the only thing. Mm-hmm.
That's a really good point, because honestly, Victor, that tool, which I might have one in the back. The only reason, that's a great tool, but the only reason I don't use it is because I don't like it taking up that much space in my bag. That's simply it. But I actually believe that tool is probably the best, least invasive tool, I would say, because you're really just using friction. And like Victor said, the opposite end has, the front end, I think it's made of brass, and then the back end has a little brass wedge that you simply wedge in and massage that felt so that it widens that opening so that it moves more freely. That is less, you're not going to move it as much or crimp the surrounding wood as much using that. So that is a great tool to kind of wet your whistle and get started with.
It's also, I'm sorry, it's really quick if you got like a whole keyboard to do and they're not that, you just need to ease everything a little bit because you're not switching back between reaming the balance rail hole and then getting pliers. Because, it takes about a second to switch, but up to over 88. Right. Yeah.
You're so right.
You just flip it over.
Yeah. With that tool, what Victor's saying, and he's right, is you're able to come and ease the balance rail hole, make sure it's eased, then you come on this side and press it, and in one fairly fluid motion. And I don't know why, but I don't usually have to ease a lot of keys. I did when I was doing a lot of shop work and a lot of in-store work, because you'd have brand new pianos that need to get all the keys eased. So you are totally right, Victor, and it kind of makes me want to grab another one of those tools.
Yeah.
Stacy,
Yeah,
put that on the list. She's probably gone. I think she's gone.
Oh, yeah. Now that I think about it, yeah, the most I use that tool is definitely in dealers when I'm doing prep work. I just need to ease everything real quick.
Yeah.
And the one I have, for some reason, it doesn't have the wood piece, so it's pretty skinny, and that's why I like the one I have.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've seen those. Yeah.
And yeah, it doesn't take up much space. I mean, it's so thin. It's just like a pencil that goes into my bag.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, I haven't had to ease many balance rails, and that balance rail hole. I'm mainly using the pliers that you like to use and just doing individual keys for the customers that I'm seeing. I haven't done a lot of dealers or where I'm needing to do the whole keyboard. So I'm going to keep that in
Yeah.
mind for what Victor had said about, hey, if you need to go through and do both sides, both the balance rail and the front rail bushings, then use that single tool to go through it. I like that idea a lot.
Now that Victor kind of brought up this, and might as well stay in this lane, but when you're doing dealer work, I would say that when you're doing anything, consistency is key. And one of the ways that you can remain very consistent is using one of these key easing irons. Now they sell these, I believe they sell these at Schaff and I think even Howard, but this is a two-part system. So you have not only the wand right here that you would actually insert a brass brooch, and they have different sizes depending on what size, key bushing call that was originally used. But they also have this dial temp. And this is nice because you're able to set this just right so it has the proper heat. I know you're going to ask me, well, what's the proper heat? And for whatever reason, I don't even know what these deck and ink are, but I usually have it set right in the middle between the two. And I like using an easing iron when I'm doing like a lot of easing because of the consistency I'm able to get. And as you probably know, whenever we're working with heat, this should be very aware of overheating because it's easy to burn things. It's easy to char things. And then that creates sounds, it creates noises and clicks. So be very careful. You're going to use the iron. Start off slow with a low temp. You do want to ease. You do want it to be warm enough so it actually really is ironing that felt. But just make sure that it's not burning it. So those are the different options that most people will use in actually performing the key easing. We don't want to over ease. We don't want to burn. And those are really the two most important things that we want to watch out for is over easing and then actually burning if you're going to use the heat, the iron. When it comes to how much to ease the keys, I would say this is something early on in my career I didn't have a good handle on. I was not easing the keys nearly as much as I needed to. And I would say that that's typically what people do is they ease them to the point where they just barely don't have any friction. And the reality is we need some, sorry, we got a train. I can't wait for you guys to get here because you're gonna hear that train in person and it's pretty epic. But we need to give ourselves a little bit of extra room for the swelling and contracting of these keys. Now, some people will say, well, depending on the time of year, you're going to know how much to ease those keys. If it's the summer months and things are swelled up, you're not going to want to over ease them because they're already going to, okay, we can get into the nitty gritty and we can do all that, but just be aware of how much you actually do need to push it a little bit further. And I wanted to go over that right now. I always am going to start when I'm easing with the balance rail easing. And so my test, and usually, I shouldn't say usually, sometimes I'll go ahead and have the keys fully removed if I'm doing this job because this is a nice time to go ahead and McLube spray all the pins. Make sure when you do this, you don't do what I just did and do it outside, because now we're going to have all this nice fumes and you're going to see me start to slur my words as it goes. But that's what you pay for. So we'll keep the train moving. So go ahead, and if you have the keys out, that's a great time to go ahead and just lubricate, check the key pins, make sure that everything is clean and then well lubricated. And then I like to just simply go kind of one at a time. I want to see right there, that balance rail hole is way too tight. Now, I'll be honest with you, what I did before class is I actually wet these down so that they would swell up. But that's kind of what you will see, is when you go to lift the keys and try to drop it back, it doesn't want to drop back into position. That balance rail hole is too tight. So using your reaming tool right here, you're going to go ahead and insert it through there. And then what your goal is, because again, this is elongated, there's an oval shape to it as you get further down on the tool. You want that to be, you essentially want the flat side to be going straight through like this. So this is, again, the oval side flat to the key. And then you just simply want to massage it in going left and right. And start slow, because, again, we can test it. We want to slowly make sure it goes down. So here we go. I would say that's still a little tight. I want it to drop down a little bit easier. So I'm going to go a little bit further. Go ahead, and if you have any questions.
Have you seen people test it by pushing down on the capstan with one hand and then kind of lifting from the front of the key? Maybe picking it up a few inches. About like right there.
I have, and that's not a bad way of doing it too, because then you.
Yeah, pretty much like that. What you just did.
Yeah. I find that for me, that's not loose enough. Now that could just be my personal preference, but I like to lift it kind of all the way up and see if it kind of drops down. That way I just know. Now, what you do want to make sure not to do is, if you over ease it, what it's going to do is create that front. If you've elongated that hole too much, it's going to create this front to back wobble. And a lot of people don't realize how bad that is, because what it does is it creates a noise, and it's very subtle, but it's very much there when it's happening. And so that death knock, if you will, is something we want to avoid at all costs. So definitely under ease it at first, just to kind of test it out. I'm feeling pretty good about that. It's dropping down. It looks good, but it is now binding, and I can really tell it is binding in that balance rail bushing. So it's going through, no problem. I can feel there's no front to back wobble in the key. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. Now, again, we're slowly doing this. It usually doesn't take nearly this long, and you'll be able to blow through it. But just for education's sake, it's nice to kind of take our time.
Yeah, I got a question, David.
Yeah, go for it.
Have you ever done it from the bottom of the key instead of the top?
I've only done it that way when they're so bad, so tight. Mm-hmm. Because what you don't want, when you do, let me see, the way, I'm just trying to explain it. The way this is designed optimally is that hole at a microscopic level will be drilled, that it's more like that. So that pin, which it sits in the middle, it's almost, we want it to a certain way. And when you go in from the top, you're almost making this reverse V this way, which we don't want. We want that V to be like this, so it's a better balancing point. And when you come up from the bottom, because that tool is tapered, we don't want that to be tapered that way. We want it to be tapered the opposite way, so we maintain this shape versus that shape. Does that make sense, Victor?
Yes. No, that makes complete sense. I haven't thought about it like that. Because I'm not gonna lie, that our mentor, for some reason, we've always done it from the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to do it from the bottom until I got reamed out by a technician. My teenage self, I wish I could like go and open a portal and just like re-educate myself from some of the early mentors that I had, because they were so intense. And I think that some of that old guard is moving on, but there's that was one of those things where it was very much like one technician told me one way and the other technician obliterated that idea. Then when I used my common sense, I could understand, okay, no, I do think that this makes the most amount of sense. So for what it's worth, that's why I do this way, again, to keep that shape of that hole a certain way so that it functions properly.
No, I'm definitely gonna try it from the top now. That makes sense. I guess unless you're right, unless it's so bad that I guess you can't get enough movement off the top. So
Yeah.
you gotta get.
Yeah. Exactly. That's a great question, though. So I'm just going to go through and make sure that all the balance rail holes are eased. And going from that top, pressing it down, and then I'm kind of pressing it, and then I'm moving it to the side as I go, just to elongate that hole ever so much. And I love that. Like that's like that perfect bit. It falls down, but I don't have any rock. That's what I'm looking for. That one looks like it. Yep, sure enough. I think I over-eased that one in the past as an example, but let's look at that. I just dropped it in, and it just rockets down to the bottom. And if you look really close, I'm looking at this one. You can see there's that front to back motion. If you have that happen, and you can hear that click, what I recommend you do, and we've talked about this before, is we glue size this. And so historically, what I was taught initially was you make a cut right at the very edge of the hole, either the front or the back, and you make a slice. And then you go ahead and so you're making a channel, and then you go ahead and insert some kind of a veneer or some kind of a little bit of wood to then basically shrink that hole. Then you sand it flush and let it dry, and then you ease it again. Historically, that was what was taught, and that was what was taught to me, and for years I did that. But then I had the privilege of working with a rebuilder. His name is Del Fondrick, and he's a phenomenal rebuilder, and he says, no, let's just do this. And he showed me this trick, and I was just like blown away. You basically just use a little bit of wood glue and water, you mix it together so it's almost like a film, and then you simply massage that into the wood fibers right here, so it almost like makes a little bit of a bubble right at there. And that what it does is it swells the wood fibers, and then that glue hardens as it dries, and so it's swollen and dried in that swollen position. So then you can go ahead and then ease it after that. I'll tell you, I have used that over the last 20 years. I've never once had a piano where it didn't work. And I'm telling you, I've had some really rough 100-plus-year-old Steinways that have been played in. Those holes were super elongated. I might have had to do it multiple passes, but my goodness, it works. It works phenomenally well. Have any of you heard of this trick prior to me explaining it to you? I'm curious.
No, that sounds pretty interesting. I would like to see, maybe in the in person to see how to exactly do that.
Yeah.
But I'm surprised that somebody hasn't tried. Now that I think about it, like CA glue, trying to just kind of swell that wood.
It was kind of a game changer for me, because as you can imagine this, and this is what I used to do, is imagine you have all the keys that are flopping back and forth. You literally have to remove every key. You get a little Japanese pole saw, you make a slice, you go ahead and insert that, glue it in, make sure it's in place, sand it flush. Good God, there was so much work to get that fixed. And then when you said, oh, just do this, it'll take about 35 minutes. What? And then it just comically better. So yeah, we've gone ahead and we've eased the balance rail holes. And the next thing that I will do is I like to ease, because I'm already focused up here. I like to ease the balance rail key bushings. So if I have my iron, I'm simply going to kind of test that out first. I usually just kind of like lick my finger and just kind of tap it to see what kind of heat is on there. If it like just sizzles like crazy, I might be like, whoa, that's a little bit intense. I'm going to dial it back. But for this, I'm liking that. I'm going to go ahead and just press it straight through. And let's do this. Let me see if I can get this good angle. Bear with me, y'all. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going straight down, and you can rock it a little bit to the left or to the right. Don't do too much of that, because not only do we not want to over ease it, but we don't want to burn the wood edges with our caul, and that can happen at times. So I want to see and feel just a little bit of wobble back and forth on that balance rail. So again, I'm working on this key right here, and I can see just a little bit of, it's almost like a little bit of lost motion, just ever so much. So I know that this is completely eased. That looks good. It feels like it doesn't feel like there's wobble, but I can see when I rock the key back and forth, there's just a little bit of play, and that's what I'm going for. Now, that was something that I didn't know until I worked with a concert technician that showed me that, and I thought that was going to create problems not having it hugged enough within the key bushings, but sure enough, it's never been an issue. You just don't, the balance rail can be a little bit more eased than the front rail bushing, and so keep that in mind. So my balance rail hole, my balance rail bushings will be a little bit more eased so that there's a little bit more play than my front rail bushings. And so right now, I'm just easing these balance rail bushings, giving them that little bit of play, little bit of wobble back and forth. So first time, I just simply use my iron. Now I'm going through and using each one of these. That's good. I don't like this tool for these. I don't know why. I just don't. I like this tool for like my my front rail bushings, but I feel like it's cumbersome. Like it gets in the way when it comes to these. And I don't know, Victor, if you've experienced the same thing, but I just don't like it as much for these balance rail.
I don't even. Where did you even get those? I've never seen those.
That's funny you mentioned that, because Michael Stillwell over at the Piano Technician Academy was wondering about that too, and because he used to have a pair, and he was like wondering where they went and if he could find them. And so I actually found some on eBay, and I sent them over to him. But they sell them, but I thought that they were more popular than what they seem to be. And so, yeah, they sell them. I think they're like $150, so they're kind of expensive. Man. Yeah, it's one of those. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, it's a pretty like intense, legit tool. So the idea is that you have these parallel easing pliers so that they go down exactly at the same amount, and they're fairly rigid and beefy so they don't break. I mean, it's a nice tool, but $150?
That looks like something that you could get like on Supply. I'm not on Supply, Pianoforte Supply, because they have a lot of like weird pliers and stuff like that. Like they have those jack centering pliers. Like who else carries that?
Yeah.
I feel like they would have that. Maybe I feel like I have seen that. I'm gonna check. I'm gonna check right now.
Okay, while you're checking that, Victor, Stacy and I have both been on the friggin' hunt for, let's see if I can find them. You know how you were mentioning that, like, hey, where'd you get these smiley frownies that are in this style? And I'm like, they're on Shaft. They're no longer sold anywhere. And just so you know, they're called factory wire bending pliers, which is awesome because that means that historically this is what people use, but they're not available. So maybe check to see if that supply house that you're looking at has these pliers.
Oh, yeah, I'm telling you, because you have them, and you're always talking about them, and they always look everywhere. And nobody, has those. The closest ones I can find are the ones like that, but they still have a spring, so they
Yeah.
open at the bottom. But
Yeah.
that defeats the purpose.
No, it's funny because so many of the tools that are laying around here I got 20 years ago, and I just assumed that they're still in production, but a lot of them are not. So, and I don't necessarily think that that's because they've made better ones. I think that, you know how sometimes it's almost like maybe some of the knowledge and techniques get lost over the decades, and so people don't know now today how good a tool used to be. I don't know. It feels like there's some of that going on. Anyways, I digress. We've
Well,
gone
I'll talk
ahead.
about that. I'll talk about that later about pliers, and I think why we don't have so many
Well, I am interested in
choices
that.
anymore.
Yeah, I'm interested in that because it is an interesting bit. We've gone ahead and we've eased our balance rail holes. We've eased our balance rail bushings, giving it just a little bit of play. Now we're off to the front rail. Now this is where we want to be extra careful as well, where we're not over easing. We want just enough, almost like lost motion. We want just enough so that we know 100% that there's just a little bit of play. And I can feel this front bushing right here has just enough. Same with this one, but there's not enough in this final one. So I'm going to go ahead and lift it up. I'm going to use this tool I'm going to use this. I'm going to ease it this way. Yeah, we have just that little bit of play. And again, it's very subtle. You could almost just barely, you can barely feel it wobbling side to side, but it is so subtle. It's not a knock, but it's just enough that you know, okay, this is ease. What we don't want, I care for you guys. I want you guys to know. I'm going to over ease one just so you guys can see. So let's just go for it. Yeah, here we go. So now that is just boom, rocking back and forth. That's not great because there's two reasons we don't want to over ease, or that's especially bad when we have it over eased front rail bushing. One is you can feel that as the player. I'm not a big player, but I've worked with really big players. And if there's that little bit of wobble, especially when they're playing hard passages, big passages, Victor, you could probably attest to this. You can feel that little wobble. They can feel that, and that feels like they're not in control. It feels like things are out of balance. And
That's 100% correct.
it's just crazy because that's why that's why I really recommend working with high-level teachers or players, because you're going to find those things. And it was early on in my career, I was like, I eased something and then I'm like, wait, why does it feel like sloppy or out? I'm like, what are you talking about? And sure enough, it was because I over eased these bushings. Not only will it feel out of control for the player, you feel the sloppiness, but it can, with that player, it can also create that knocking effect or that sound. And that's what we don't want. We want things to be freely moving, but not sloppy. I guess that's, at the end of the day, that's what it is. Freely moving, but not sloppy. I think that should be my motto for life. I'm freely moving, but not sloppy.
That's perfect. That's perfect. I did find the key easing pliers, the weird ones that you have. Howard sells them, but they're out of stock. But man, they're expensive on there. They're $225. Yeah, and it does. Yeah, and it says Shaft Piano is the supplier. So I guess they have it on. I guess I can check Shaft, but
You guys want to see?
piano. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. No, go ahead.
Yeah, Piano Forte Supply, man, they have some really weird pliers. I'm telling you, they have the jack centering pliers, which I really want to try, because they're the only company that has it. And the owner of this company, I listened to a podcast of him talking about where they get these pliers made and why it's so expensive and why they have to sell them. for that expensive. And again, I think that's why we don't have that much variety anymore. Because, how many piano technicians are buying a set of pliers every year? Maybe out of the whole year, these suppliers are going to sell maybe like 100 pairs at most, probably less.
Oh, you know
So,
what, Victor, you're
yeah,
right. And I just kind of proved your point accidentally. Because what did I say? I've had my tools for 20 years.
exactly.
It's a one and done for most of these tools.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, there's new technicians, but again, these are kind of specialty. How often are they going to buy them? So he was saying we only sell, maybe a dozen a year, and we can, a lot of these companies they want to make 1,000 units. He's like, that's going to take a lifetime to sell, and they can't afford that upfront cost. So that's why I think a lot of these pliers we don't see anymore, or that we're like, well, gosh, why are there like the key eating ones, the other ones you have, your main ones, they have them on here 175.
These
That's a
guys,
lot. Yes, yeah, 175, and you're like, man, that's a lot. But again, you know, they're probably paying 100 and something bucks for them themselves. So you
it's
just don't
true.
know.
And just for you all that are coming, geez, next week, this will kind of, I did a spit take on this one. Let me see if I can do this. But we're outfitting everything right now. And so like these are all, we've been filling these, ordering everything, but my goodness, like the amount of money, like I forget because I've had my kits, our technicians have had our kits for years, but setting up 6 different technician stations, just kind of having the basic tools. Whoa. I talked to Chip at Renner, and he also hosts Renner Academy, and we were kind of joking around because I'm like, Chip, I have a whole new appreciation for you because I'm setting up these stations for our school and for our live events, and my goodness, it's just so much kind of as far as an expense goes. And and Chip is great because he's kind of got this. Oh yeah, that's really and but with Renner Academy, he had to set up 25 stations. And so it's a lot. It's one of those initial expenses, just as we as technicians have that initial expense when we're setting up our kits and our tool stations. But I forget because I haven't had to kind of buy a full round of tools in years, just how expensive it is. And when we're talking things like this at 200, what'd you
Yeah,
say, Victor? 220?
yeah, yeah. It's all those pliers. All the pliers add up. I mean, the regulation tools are very expensive, but you can buy a master set from Shaft, which is very expensive, but that encases it. But then you got to get stuff like your drop screw regulator. That stuff is all
Yeah.
separate, and
Yeah.
it's all $50. It's not too bad. But then times 6, and then
Yeah.
you got 10 of those specialty tools. Yeah, and then like they have I'm sure you've seen the side voicing pliers. Man, those things are $480.
I've never seen anybody demo or use those.
Me neither.
Okay. I'm just like, who uses this? And I mean, I'm all for buying tools and finding stuff that works and spending money on what works, but I've never seen anybody demo it. I've never seen anything like that. In fact, if I imagine that tool, because again, what it does is it goes from the side like this, and you just crimp it. I
Yeah.
can't imagine you being able to do that without it hurting that center pin bushing. Like that,
Oh, that's true.
I couldn't imagine, like, because
Yeah.
it's not that you're just hugging it, you're literally inserting needles in it and then pulling it out. I cannot imagine the damage you're doing to that center pin bushing.
That's definitely true. I haven't thought about that.
I'm
Yeah.
just like, what?
I see.
I don't
That
know.
makes sense. Yeah.
Again,
Uh,
I'm one of those people like, prove me wrong, and I'm happy to admit, like, whoa, that is a good tool. Here's $400. Give me one.
yeah, I do have one tool that I think all of us have that I don't think you've ever seen, or maybe you have seen somebody use for the opposite of easing.
What's that?
So if you go too far, we have things like Pro Felt, right,
Yeah.
to swell up the bushing, but then you got to put a call in there, right? And so, and I heard this from, and the only reason I'm saying it is because the person that I heard it from is one of the best technicians ever, Steve Brady. He won the Golden
Oh yeah.
Lever
I know
Award.
Steve.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's incredible. He was talking about that he had his personal piano at home, really great piano, but it had the knocking side to side from the front rail, just a little too much, and he didn't want to do Pro Felt, so he got a single needle and went in there and kind of fluffed up that felt. And he says that worked for. He's like, I did that 15 years ago, and it's still working just fine today. So I've never tried it, but it's very interesting, and I really want to try it and see how well it works.
You know what? That same technique is something that I use. That's a good point. It's something that I use in the damper guide rail bushings of a grand piano. If you have a lot of that side to side wobble, because those damper guide rail holes have been elongated, they're too big. I stick my chopstick voicing tool and just puncture around that felt to smush it and hug it back around that damper wire, and that has worked really well. So same concept.
Yeah.
I've never done. Oh, by the way, that same concept. If you've over eased this, you can use that same idea here. So say you've just kind of one-offed. Ooh, shoot! There's this one. I've gone through and with a needling tool, needled a single needle and punctured around this hole to bring back those wood fibers to hug that pin again, and that's worked as well. All the fun stuff you can do, though.
Yeah. This is that tool, just so everybody can know, anybody watching. It's got the
I can't
tapered
see.
in here. Can you see it or no? I see.
No, I don't see your screen. I don't see you.
What about now?
Justin, do you see Victor?
Yeah, I see Victor. He's waving around a little.
Okay, well,
yeah.
I'm not seeing.
Yeah. Oh, well, let's hope everybody else is seeing that that's watching the recording. It's got the tapered end on top, and then it's skinny right in the middle, and then it goes to the wedge part. I recommend this one if you can find it, because again, it slips into your kit. And then I do have the regular pliers, the ones that you were asking for in the beginning. It's just got one wedged end on one side. On the other end, it is flat, to go on the outside of the key for support.
Yeah, those are the ones I have.
Yeah. And you can, by the way, I think that the Piano Technician Academy, they sold a kit that had just some basic easing pliers. I recommend those. I've used those for years and years, and I still have those somewhere around here. So,
yeah, that's what I.
Yeah,
that's what I have.
Yeah, and that's fine. And you can get easing pliers for $20 on Amazon, and totally fine. It's not necessarily the tool; it's how you use it, right? Because you can you can get really efficient, you can get really sloppy, no matter what tool you're using. Yeah. But if you do think about it, granted, we're talking about expensive pliers, like these guys right here, 225 or whatever it was. At the end of the day, when you're setting up your kit, it really is pennies for what you can bring in. So to give you an idea, with our technicians, we try to shoot for $800 to $1,000 a day is what gross people are bringing in to help pay for the overhead. But that's, if you get to the point where you're bringing in $500, $600, $1,000 a day every day as you grow your business, that's after you have that upfront cost and you've established your toolkit, that's really very profitable. And so let's just say, I don't know, Victor, throw out a number and you let me know. I'm going to throw out a number. Let's just say you have $5,000 worth of tools in your kit. I don't think it's more than that.
No,
And
it's not more than that. No.
No,
But
we're talking the stringing kit, bushing kit, pinning kit,
Oh, well, everything.
Maybe.
It probably all adds up to that. But
yeah.
Yeah, but then your main case,
Yeah.
I say in your main case you should have. This is, I mean, I'm not gonna say you follow this, but at least like maybe 2,000 to 2,500 in your main case with the lever, all the pliers,
And the
regulations.
ETD.
Oh, yeah. I guess I'll raise it a little bit too. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just say on the very highest end, like you have all these kits, all these different things, and you're into it with everything 10 grand. Okay. Let's just say, that's just not going to be the case that you're going to need anywhere near that. But even 10 grand and you being able to have that kit for 20 plus years, for your entire career, that's a fairly low drop in the bucket compared to all of the income that you're able to produce with these kits. It's really pretty cool. And that's one of the things that's fun about what we do is we're not constantly having to buy things to actually perform our work. We're able to get the tools and the kits and everything, and then just hone our skills to be able to work with it more efficiently, more quickly. And which actually brings me to the point, what we might be doing is next week, we may be doing lives with everybody here, and it will be more of a discussion. And one of the topics I really want to talk about is what makes a high-level tech. And that's a really important thing because in every city, there's usually, if there's 50 technicians or whatever, there's maybe 2 or 3 that are considered high-level techs. And I want to go over what that is just so that you will all know, if you want to become a high-level tech, what does that even mean? And what are the benchmarks for that? Because I think that would be important. And a lot of people don't really think about it in that way. So we might be going over that next week with the group because I think it is important. And I don't think we've really ever talked about that a lot, the concept of a high-level tech.
That sounds pretty fun. Sounds like a good idea, but also, yeah, compared to other industries, I guess we're not really spending that much on tools. I mean, yeah, like our main tool, like your lever, you're gonna spend a lot on that, and a couple other things. But yeah, compared to other industries, still, even though now I'd spend way more than I thought I would when I started on tools. I remember when I first started, I was talking to my family, just like, yeah, I want to get started into this. I was like, I just have to buy $500 worth of tools and that's it. Like, I was like, that's pretty much it. Yeah, how wrong I was. But but still, I guess you're right. Like all in, I may be like 7 to 8,000. But again, yeah, I do have gotten maybe stuff I don't need that you can get away without. So
yes,
it's
and
really
that's
not much.
No, you can get it without. You can go without a lot of things. And what I recommend doing is building the kit as you get the jobs. So for instance, you might not have all the key bushing supplies, but you go ahead and bid a job and they decide, hey, I want to do the key bushing. And they're like, okay, great, half down. And we're going to pick it up next week. Guess what? After you're done with that job, or after you're done with the bid, you're going home and you're ordering key bushing calls, key bushing cloths, some razor blades, an iron to remove the, that's such a good protocol. As you go, as you feel comfortable, as you bid, you're building it as your skills are building and as the customers are paying you for it.
Yeah, that's completely right. I think that's the way to do it. Yeah, and a lot of those little tools aren't as expensive. Like like you don't need to buy bridle strap inserters or things like that until you need to do it. And you're exactly right. And not until we had to do that, I bought like the clip inserter and the cork one. But that's only like what, $10 a piece. That's not bad in the moment. But if you're building out a toolkit, all those $10-20 are gonna add up pretty quick.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Same with like how often are you gonna be replacing hammer shanks when you're starting off? Probably not.
Yeah,
not until you
not a lot.
probably need to do a couple, then get a shank cutter or get an extractor, a hammer extractor. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. You all, this is going to be fun because we're going to go over a lot of repairs. But the nice thing is when we're going to do the in-person, I'm really excited because, again, going back to that community, the thing that helped me grow the most was being around technicians that had been doing it for a while. And it wasn't even that they were showing me stuff that was, wow, never heard of that or never thought of that. There was that, but it was just simply them being like, good job, David. That's the right way of doing it. And it was just like, oh, I'm stressing over nothing. Or if there was one little thing that I needed to do differently, then I knew it and I can apply that. And then it was, again, the confidence. What Stacy was asking me the other day, what do you want for the technicians? And I said, I want all the technicians that come to our in-persons to feel confident after they're done. They're inspired, they're excited and confident. And wherever they're at, and that they know what they need to do to kind of move on. And we're going to have people tuning. We're going to have people doing regulation. We're going to have people doing voicing. We're going to have people doing repairs. Buckle up, friends.
Yeah. I'm excited for the stringing and oral tuning, but I have been doing a lot of stringing lately for some reason. And I've been listening to Michael's advice, Lucy Erlacher, her YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Man, she's got incredible content on there. I had already watched a lot of it before, but then Michael's been talking a lot about her, and I was like, I need to go back. And so I watched her videos on treble string, making coils and replacing string. I did a piano the other day. Man, they came out so beautiful. Like,
Really?
I was so impressed with myself. I was like, gosh, these look amazing. Because to be honest, before they did not look great, but they look factory. And I was like, man, this is a great system. So, but I know I can get further with it.
Does she teach doing it in the piano or doing the coiling out of the piano?
Out of the piano. And I always did it in the piano. But out of the piano, I like it. I like it a lot more. You don't have to mess with the pin so much. You don't got to back it out so far. Yeah. Yep. And I feel like the pin's tighter. If you back it out so far, sometimes I feel when it goes in on these older pianos, it's never tight, really that tight anymore.
No, I so agree with that. The more I've done it and thought about it, I'm really more and more of a fan of the coiling it outside the piano.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be doing that for now. But now I need a tuning pin crank because I was like an idiot, like cranking it with my tuning lever, like full length. Yeah. So I need to get one of those. But I do have a question.
I'm excited because Jacob I think he's a master at so many of these things. And that's one of the fun things about our group is we have Stacy, who's just a master at working with people and working with customers and kind of the back end of the business and what that is. Jacob is phenomenal because unlike myself, I did a lot of the skill building and I learned the craft early on. And then I moved into like, okay, how do you create a business? So I have a lot of that knowledge and kind of that level. But Jacob's great because he spent the last 25 years honing in a lot of these repairs that we're talking about. So between the different coaches, there's different aspects that I think are going to be able to help each technician out. And I'm excited for all the technicians, all the students, all the attendees to really have those options because yeah, I think that when people go to like the conventions, there's a lot of great technicians, but there's a difference between a great technician and maybe somebody who runs a successful business. You know, those aren't necessarily the two in the same. And so to be able to kind of have the different realms it's nice to have. So.
Oh yeah. So how many people are going, David, that we know like for sure there's some people that we don't know that are for sure going or not. How many people have y'all accounted for?
There's 6, there's 6 students and 3 coaches. So this is going to be a big one. Yeah. So that's going to be a total of 9 people here, including the coaches. And yeah, there's a lot of pianos here. I spent yesterday kind of starting to clean up everything because we've been filming for the last month. And so honestly, it's been feeling really dark and dreary in this space because we've had literally carpets on all the walls and the windows. And it's been like, so now with everything opened up again, it's like, you know, back to
there you go.
Where it should be. And I'm excited for everybody to be here because we have not only the space, we have gifts, we have the giveaways, we have just the community aspect. And I think it's going to be incredible. And again, nobody's really ever done it this way as far as I can tell. And I'm glad because you guys are coming and we're all guinea pigs together trying this out. So it'll be
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Real quick on that Merari that you have, does it have single hitch pins on the treble section?
No.
Oh, okay. The one I saw, it had single hitch pins. And I was like, that's so interesting to see this on this piano. Yeah, and I was
No.
trashing on it last time, but I mean, they're to me they're kind of like every other Korean piano, kind of same, same level.
Well, and it'll be fun because I think that again, with people, when we come to this in person, we kind of want to let people gravitate towards what they want to gravitate towards. So, for instance, folks may feel more comfortable starting with the upright action model instead of just tackling the full-on upright right away, and that's great. You'll have those different options. They may, and we have 2 tuning bays with a grand piano and an upright piano, so people can work on just tuning for a couple hours, and we're going to check in on them. So there's just so many different realms that we can kind of tackle in a week. And Classic Pianos is thrilled and excited on Wednesday to host everybody and go over all the pianos. And I learned so much because I helped Classic showcase or work with one of our customers. She ended up buying a Busendorfer. I learned so much in the half an hour I was with Taylor, one of the owners of Classic, and explaining the Busendorfer ins and outs. I had no idea. I've been doing it for 25 years and I knew a lot about Busendorfer, but all the details that these salespeople know about these pianos, Victor, you were already talking about some of the CF3 stuff, and it's just like there's so many hidden gems and things to know about. And you're going to get a front row seat with Classic, which is, to me, I'll just be real, is one of the biggest, best, most heart-centered companies, piano companies in the world. They're phenomenal, and they're excited to be a part of the school. They've given us pianos. They've given us a lot. So I'm excited for everybody to meet them and to be able to kind of see Portland is their hub. And so we're going to go and tour their space. So
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. I think that's like probably what I'm most excited for. Or like one of the outings. I think that's going to be good. And I do have one more question, David. I asked you the other day about dampers that I was having trouble with. That they were. It feels like they're just coming down too fast. They are lifting late. I did check the timing. They're moving about 3/4 of the way. And I also adjusted the upstop rail because there was way too much slop in the dampers. But that really didn't change the feel all too much because I think the timing is so late. Do you still recommend retiming everything?
Can you remind me of what the issue is with it? Can you remind me of what the negative experience is?
When you're playing, it's really hard to catch the pedal when you're doing fast motions. As in, like, it's really the more I played on it, the more I was missing like my pedal. Like I would play something in my left hand, and then I would hit the pedal to catch those notes to sustain, but I would miss. And again, like I'm not a excellent player, but I play enough to where I can notice it. But my client, he's a serious player, and he was telling me, he's like, no, he's like, for the last couple of years, I've been doubting myself. He's like, maybe I'm just losing my touch, but he's like, no, he's like, I know I'm good enough to catch most of the things I'm doing, and he just can't.
And when you say catch, we're not talking about the sostenuto, are we?
No, well, that's also a problem, but
Okay.
I guess to him, the main concern is that right pedal, but I feel like it's it may be connected in some way. I don't know, but probably not, but.
Okay, 2 things. One is, do we know that there's enough, and you and I have talked about this before, enough throw, enough, you know how sometimes if it's, there's not enough throw in the pedal itself, if it's not moving enough, you've checked that, I'm sure, right? That there's enough.
I didn't go under and see how much felt was there, but me playing, it felt okay. Now that because I was thinking about that this morning before we started, I was like, I never checked that, but I pushed down and it feels good. So I think that that's okay, but I guess I do need to check that too, because you're right. If it's not going down enough, then those dampers won't be going high enough.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I would check that, make sure there's no minimal lost motion in that, or extra play in that pedal.
Mhm.
Make sure that there's enough space that that's going up. Make sure that
Mhm.
that lift, the damper upstop rail is right. And then from there, you'll know that the baseline is set. You know that the foundation is good. So then
Mhm.
I would go ahead and potentially change that timing so that they're lifting at about the halfway mark as opposed to 2/3. Because isn't that what you said about 3/4, 2/3?
Yeah, 3/4. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so 3/4 is kind of pushing it. And
Mhm.
I would be guessing that even in the tuning, when you're playing and tuning it, as you slightly lift off on those notes, you might actually, even as you press some of those notes in the bichords, it may not be fully coming out of that. If
Yeah,
it's,
you may be right. Yeah, he was saying in the middle section, it does feel like that. Like sometimes the notes are not ringing like they're supposed to.
yeah,
So
and
I think you're right.
that would all make sense that the timing is just too late. And you might have checked a couple of them that, yes, they're lifting at 3/4, but you might
Mhm.
have a lot of them that are lifting less than that.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
I would definitely look into that. Changing that timing. What is the make?
It's a Yamaha G2.
Does it have the spoons or is it? I can't
Uh,
remember.
I don't know what it's a Yamaha G2 from the 90s. I'm
I
not sure
don't
if you
think it
would
would
know.
have the spoons. I think you'd have to go
No.
ahead. What I typically do is I will lower that tray, loosen
Mhm.
those, and then get my samples first and last of each section and one in the middle, and then set that timing so that the tray there will push down and set it down lower, and then regulate it and then give it lost motion after you're done. It should be a fairly easy thing, but at
Yeah.
least then you'll know, okay, we're lifting it halfway. Let's just shoot for that and see. And I would maybe just test out a handful of them, like maybe your C's. Hey,
Mhm.
I've just adjusted all of these down lower so that each of these are lifting at the halfway. Does this feel better to you, Mr. Player? Oh, that's
Yeah.
way better. Good. Then you know.
Mm. Okay, that's a good idea. I didn't think of doing test samples, or maybe even I could do a test octave. Wow, that may be too much. But I see. Now, like you're saying, you would just lower the tray, and then once you find it where you want it, you would just loosen all the set screws and let them drop, right? And then retighten
Correct.
them.
That's right.
Okay.
And then I'll lower that tray after I'm done once those are all tightened down so that we've got that little bit of lost motion.
Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. And my mentor had happened to call me like the same day or the day after I'd spoken to you about it. But for him, he always gets real like not nervous, but he kind of freaks me out. Like anytime I ask him about dampers, he's like, I don't know, Victor. I don't know. I really think it's best if I go. I'm like, but I understand. Like, I understand what's going on here. But this makes me feel a lot. But I know I've done damper timing before, and I don't know how many grand. So, I think I'm pretty confident in knowing how
Well, and
to do this.
especially a Yamaha for the 90s, two things. Those are fairly easy dampers to work on. We're not talking about a historic piano that we might
Mhm.
break something. That's going to be easy. Those dampers have made it through those strings for 30 years. So it's not
Yeah,
like you just get them in place and they'll work. We're just
that's true.
lowering. Yeah. This would be a perfect one to do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna try that. I need to check that pedal first because I hope it's just the pedal and I
Boy,
just
if it
missed
was
it.
just the
But
pedal, you might be like, and that would make some amount of sense, is that we're not getting
Mhm.
enough pedal throw. And because of that, we're not able to get those dampers up high enough so that Sausalito tab is really working. That might be the
Yeah,
issue.
yeah, and I think you may be that because when I was half pedaling, or I call it fractional pedaling, I didn't have that much movement or didn't have that much variety, and that's usually because it's not going down far enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have that much play. Um, and and the salsa nudo, do you think that damper timing is also going to affect the salsa noodle blade catching it?
100%.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're going to be going up higher, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh,
Because
okay.
what's going to happen is if it's catching up here before, now you're going to have it catching down here, and that's going to go higher.
Yeah.
Be
Oh,
sure to
okay.
adjust that damper upstop rail because you just lowered it. You might need
Mhm.
to raise it up now a little bit.
Yeah, maybe that's why there was so much movement in it, because of the key infill they did, and now there's just so much extra movement. So okay, I should probably do that then. Should I move the upstop rail up first before I change the timing?
No, I've changed the timing on some samples and then see what you got. Do
Oh,
all
that's
your
right.
C's. I like doing them one on each section, one in the bass, one in the treble, one in the tenor, just so that you have an even, okay, I know that this will work everywhere, and then go from there. So as you lower them down, you're good. You lower the trade back so that you have some of the lost motion in the ones that, in your C's, and then you'll go ahead and play each one of those C's. Make sure that there's just a little bit of, when you're pulling up on that damper head, a little bit of lost motion, but not too
Yeah.
much, so that those, and then just go from there. Play each one of those notes, and then play it with the sostenuto. Make sure it catches. Make sure there's enough throw. You know this. You got this.
Yeah. Okay. No, yeah, that makes me feel so much more comfortable. I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a good piano, nothing crazy, you know.
Yeah.
It's not like a weird. Yeah, you're right. It's not like a weird historic piano. So I shouldn't have any trouble. But no, that definitely helps a lot, and I'll let you guys know what
Yeah.
I'm able to do with it.
All right, guys. See you on Monday. Literally, we'll see you on
Oh, yeah.
Monday.
Yeah. Well, yeah. All right. Take it easy. We'll see you then.
All right, see you guys.